The power of a single hour, 1 hour of pure, uninterrupted focus a day will transform you. Read that sentence again and let its profound simplicity sink in. 60 minutes, not your entire day, not a grueling 16-hour work marathon, just one focused hour where you give your complete, undivided attention to the work that truly matters. Most people unknowingly squander that much time every single day, drifting through social media, lost in overthinking, or caught in the shallow currents of busy work that changes absolutely nothing. But what if you were to reclaim just one of those hours? What if you were to build a fortress around 60 minutes and dedicate it to real, tangible progress? Your life would begin to look different, and it would happen faster than you can imagine. This is not another anthem for the cult of hustle. This is not about working yourself into the ground. It is about working with surgical precision. It is about making a conscious decision that for one solid golden hour, nothing else in the universe exists except the one thing that will move your life forward. No phone, no notifications, no half-hearted effort. You will be astonished at what you can build, what you can learn, and what you can fix when you grant something the rare gift of your full and complete focus. This Daily Focus Hour audiobook is your guide to that power. 1 hour a day is more than enough to change your results, to fortify your confidence, and to completely rewrite your future if you are willing to begin now. The hour of confrontation, facing what you avoid. You know exactly what it feels like to have that one thing you have been relentlessly avoiding. It could be a difficult conversation, a complex task, a critical piece of work, a commitment you made, or perhaps most commonly a personal change you know in your bones you need to make. It lives in the back of your mind, a silent tenant that pays no rent but occupies valuable mental space. You think about it when you wake up in the morning, a vague cloud of dread. You think about it before you fall asleep at night, a whisper of unresolved responsibility, and yet day after day you master the art of creative procrastination, finding another reason, another excuse to push it aside just one more time. The liberating truth is that you do not need more time to get it done. You need to give it one solid, uninterrupted hour of your focus, just one. An hour may not sound like a monumental commitment. You might think it won't make a significant difference. But the reason you are stuck is not because the task itself is impossible. It is because you have not been willing to face it with your full presence. Avoidance is a force multiplier for pressure. It builds a heavy, invisible weight in your mind that drains your energy even when you are not actively working on the thing you are hiding from. Every time you procrastinate, you add another layer to the stress, and that stress will not dissipate. Until you finally take meaningful action, if you were to give that one thing you've been avoiding just 1 hour of your complete and total attention today, something powerful will begin to happen. First, you will immediately feel lighter. This is not a placebo effect, it is a neurological reality. Action clears the mental clutter that inaction creates. Second, you will begin to dismantle the psychological wall that avoidance has so carefully constructed in your mind. That wall is not made of the task itself, it is constructed from the bricks of fear, uncertainty, and resistance. So many people are trapped by the fallacy that they have to feel ready before they can begin. But readiness is a trap. Waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect surge of energy, the perfect mood, that is how years slip by without any real progress. You do not need to feel ready to start. You need to start, and then you will begin to feel ready. If the thing you have been avoiding feels overwhelmingly large, do not try to conquer it all in one sitting. A single focused hour is not about completing everything at once. It is about committing to forward motion. Think of it like opening a heavy locked door. You do not have to walk all the way through the room on the other side just yet, but you do have to turn the key. That 1 hour is you turning the key. When you sit down for that focused hour, you must protect it as if it were the most important meeting of your life. No phone in sight. No social media tabs open. No wandering off to quickly check something else. You do not need to multitask. You need to single task. The human brain operates at its peak efficiency when it is fully immersed in one thing at a time. And when you give your entire mind to a single objective, even for a short duration, you can produce a higher quality of work in that 1 hour than in several distracted hours combined. Here is the secret. The most difficult part is always the first 10 minutes. That is when the resistance is at its peak. Your mind will scream for escape, for delay, for any other activity. Push past those first 10 minutes. Once you are immersed, momentum will become your ally, carrying you further than you thought possible. The individuals who truly transform their lives are not the ones who work endlessly without rest. They are the ones who work with profound intention. They understand that progress is not about doing everything at once. It is about doing the right thing with consistency. And 1 hour of deep focus on the task you have been avoiding is infinitely more valuable than 10 hours of scattered, half-hearted effort on easy, unimportant tasks. The hour of presence, mastering the art of now. Most people navigate their entire day without ever being fully present. They are physically located in one place, but their minds are scattered across 100 different thoughts, plans, memories, and worries. They check their phone while in the middle of a face-to-face conversation. They think about tomorrow's workload while eating dinner with their family. They replay an awkward encounter from last week while sitting in a critical meeting. Their life is a constant state of mental fragmentation, and because their attention is perpetually divided, they miss the real depth, nuance, and power of the moment they are in. Spending 1 hour a day deliberately proving to yourself that you can stay fully present is not just a productivity hack or a concentration exercise. It is a fundamental training of the mind to live in the only place where life actually happens. Right now, when you dedicate a full hour to a single task without allowing your attention to fracture and drift, you experience that activity at its highest resolution. You hear details in a piece of music you would normally overlook. You see connections in a text with a newfound clarity. You feel more deeply connected to the work you are doing, and you begin to realize just how much of your precious mental energy has been leaking away through the thousands of tiny cracks of distraction. This is the core of the 1 hour focus habit. Staying fully present for an entire hour is far more challenging than most people assume. You might believe you can. Do it easily, but the moment you sit down with that intention, your mind will begin its rebellion. It will try to wander. It will dangle a notification in front of your imagination. It will remind you of a forgotten errand. It will relentlessly push you toward ruminating about the past or fantasizing about the future. Each time you notice this drift and gently but firmly pull your attention back to the present moment. That is the training. That is the mental repetition that builds the muscle of focus. Choose something of substance for your hour of presence. It could be reading a book that challenges your intellect, working deeply on a project that requires complex problem-solving, practicing a skill like playing an instrument, or learning a language, or even having a genuine screen-free conversation with someone you care about. The task itself is secondary to the quality of your focus. The singular purpose of this hour is to keep your mind here on this, without letting it escape into 1,000 other mental destinations. The first step is to architect an environment that supports your intention. If you attempt this practice, in the place where your phone is buzzing, the television is on, and people are interrupting you every few minutes, you are setting yourself up for failure. Presence needs space. It needs quiet. Leads you to proactively remove the easy exits for your attention. Put your phone in another room, close the door, communicate to others that you are unavailable for the next hour. Then, as you begin, make a conscious declaration to yourself, for the next 60 minutes, this task is my entire world. Everything else can and will wait. If an unrelated thought arises, as it inevitably will, simply acknowledge it without judgment and let it go. Do not follow it down a rabbit hole. Do not entertain it. Bring yourself back to the task at hand. In the beginning, you may have to do this dozens of times within the hour. That is perfectly normal. Presence is not about achieving a state of zero distraction. It is about the discipline of noticing when you have drifted and consistently, gently, returning to your anchor point. The more you practice this return, the stronger your ability to sustain your presence will become. Just as muscles grow stronger with resistance training, your focus sharpens with deliberate use. And that sharpness fundamentally changes how you work, how you learn, and how you connect with other people. The hour of completion, closing the loops of procrastination. There are things in your life right now that have been sitting unfinished for far too long. You know exactly what they are. They have been occupying a corner of your mind for weeks, months, or perhaps even years. Every time you are reminded of them, you feel a small, familiar weight settle in your chest. You tell yourself, I'll get to it soon. But that ambiguous soon never seems to arrive on the calendar. These unfinished items do not just take up space on your to-do list. They take up valuable cognitive and emotional space in your head. They are silent energy vampires, creating a low-grade hum of stress and keeping you from moving forward with a clear and focused mind. The habit of postponing is insidious. It does not just happen once, it becomes a self-reinforcing pattern. When you leave something unfinished, it quietly trains your brain to accept open loops and loose ends. And when you learn to accept loose ends, they begin to multiply. One postponed task. Today turns into 2 postponed tasks by the end of the week. Before you know it, you are surrounded by a mental landscape cluttered with half-commitments that hang over you like a persistent shadow. That is why dedicating 1 focused hour each day to finishing what you have been putting off can radically change your entire sense of control and agency over your life. Finishing something you have long delayed carries a unique and powerful kind of satisfaction. Distinct from the excitement of starting something new, starting feels aspirational. Finishing feels freeing. When you finally complete a task that has been lingering, you are not just crossing an item off a list, you are removing a significant mental burden. You are freeing yourself from the quiet, nagging guilt that comes from knowing it is still waiting for you. That sense of freedom creates a surge of momentum, and that momentum makes it profoundly easier to handle the next thing you have been avoiding. This is a key principle in this 1-hour daily discipline audiobook. To make this practice effective, you must approach it with surgical clarity. Do not just vaguely say, "I'll work on it for an hour." That is not a commitment. It is a suggestion. You must decide before the hour begins exactly what finished looks like. Be ruthlessly specific. If it is a difficult email you have been delaying, your goal for the hour is to write it, review it, and press send before the time is up. If it is a stack of paperwork you have been avoiding, your goal is to have it filled out completely, checked for accuracy, and filed in its proper place. If it is a cluttered room you have been meaning to organize, your goal is to have it clean, orderly, and ready for use by the end of that hour. The presence of a clock is a powerful motivator. Knowing you have only 60 minutes creates a healthy sense of urgency that forces you to focus. You simply do not have time to waste scrolling through your phone, daydreaming, or getting lost in overthinking. You are here to finish, not just to make a little progress. This finisher mindset compels you to cut away unnecessary steps, to ignore the siren song of perfectionism, and to get straight to the actions that matter most. One of the primary reasons people keep postponing tasks is that they have mentally inflated them into something much bigger than they really are. You might imagine that something will take hours or even days to complete, but once you finally sit down and engage with it, you often realize it is far more manageable than you believed. The resistance you have been feeling was not because the task was too big. It was because you were carrying the weight of it around without ever taking action. That is why the first few minutes of this hour are so crucial. Once you start, you will often discover that the finish line is much closer than you thought. The hour of intensity, working as if everything depends on it. Most people treat an hour of their day as if it is a small, disposable unit of time, something that comes and goes without much significance. But there is a profoundly different way to perceive it. What if you were to work for 1 single hour with the unwavering mindset that everything about your future, your success, your freedom, your legacy, depended entirely on what you accomplished in that specific window of time? What if you treated that hour not as one of many, but as the most important hour of your life? The way you approach your work would change instantaneously. You would not waste a single second. You would not allow yourself to be tempted by the allure of your phone. You would not half commit to the task at hand. You would show up fully with every ounce of your focus and energy, because you would understand that the way you spend this singular hour could shape the entire trajectory of your life. When you adopt this mindset, you begin to respect time in a way that most people never do. You realize that the chasm between ordinary effort and extraordinary effort is often bridged by how seriously you take the moments you have been given. If you knew with absolute certainty that a single hour could decide whether you succeed or fail, whether you move forward or remain stuck, you would push yourself with a level of intensity you rarely access. That level of focus can transform the quality of your work, and over time, it can completely transform your life. An hour can feel brief, but when you work with absolute commitment, it is more than enough time to make significant game progress. The problem is that most people approach their important work casually. They are physically present, but they are not mentally engaged. Their attention drifts. Their pace slows. And they ultimately end up with results that perfectly match their diluted level of focus. When you work as if your future depends on it, there is no room for a casual approach. Every second matters. You move with purpose. You think with greater speed. You execute with precision. This mindset is the engine of the life transformation in 1 hour audio principle. This intensity also forces you to become ruthless in your elimination of unnecessary actions. You instinctively stop doing things that do not directly contribute to your goal. You stop filling time with busy work that feels productive but produces nothing of real value. You become crystal clear on what actually matters within that hour, and you dedicate your entire being to it. This is not a strategy for working endlessly without rest. It is about understanding that there are critical moments in life when you must perform at your absolute peak. And for the purpose of this practice, this 1 hour is one of those moments. Imagine you are an athlete competing for a championship, and you have been given exactly 1 hour to prove your skill. Would you take breaks to check your messages? Would you let your mind wander to other things, or would you push yourself to deliver the best performance you have ever given? That is the energy, the urgency, and the intensity you need to bring to this hour every single time, because in truth you never really know which hour will be the one that opens the door to your next great opportunity. Working with this level of intensity does not just produce better results. It fundamentally changes you as a person. You develop a new, higher standard for yourself that does not tolerate laziness or half-hearted effort. You become accustomed to operating at an elevated level, and that becomes your new normal. This kind of discipline makes you stand out in any field because most people never willingly push themselves to discover what they are truly capable of in a short, focused burst of time. The hour of leverage, focusing on high-impact actions. Every single day, you are faced with a barrage of choices about where to direct your time and energy. Some of these choices lead to activities that keep you busy, but do not actually take you anywhere meaningful. They fill the hours on your calendar, but when you look back at the end of the day, they have not made you any better, any more skilled, any financially stronger, or any closer to your most important goals. Then there are the other kinds of actions, the ones that truly move you ahead. These are the high-leverage actions that create progress you can measure, see, and feel. The fundamental challenge of modern life is that the important high-leverage actions are often the very ones you avoid, while the unimportant low-leverage ones are seductively easy to say yes to. That is precisely why dedicating one focused hour each day exclusively to what truly moves you ahead can radically change the entire direction of your life. Progress is not, and never has been, the result of doing more things. It is the result of doing more of the right things. You could spend 10 hours a day answering non-critical emails, organizing trivial details, or attending meetings that lead nowhere. At the end of that day, you would feel utterly exhausted, yet you would have made no real forward movement. But 1 hour, just one, invested in the right place can far outweigh all of that scattered activity. That 1 hour must be dedicated to the work that directly and significantly impacts your future, your income, your skills, your physical health, your key relationships, or your personal growth. The critical first step is identifying what actually moves you ahead. This is the point where most people get stuck. They confuse being active with being effective. To break free from this common trap, you must take the time to define your true priorities with brutal honesty. Ask yourself this powerful question. If I could only do one thing today that would make my life demonstrably better tomorrow, what would it be? The answer to that question is where your 1 hour of focus belongs. Once you have identified this real driver of progress, you can give it your undivided, unapologetic attention without being pulled into the endless vortex of distractions disguised as urgent but unimportant work. This is the core of any 1 hour. To success audiobook. When you begin your hour of leverage, you must be ruthless in its protection. This is not the time for multitasking. Multitasking is one of the greatest thieves of progress ever invented. It creates the illusion of getting more done, but in reality it spreads your cognitive energy so thin that nothing receives your best effort. For this hour, your focus must be absolute. Every text message, every notification, every stray thought that attempts to pull you away must be deferred. For this hour, nothing else exists except the work that matters most. This focused hour is where you make your strategic moves. It is where you push forward on the big, game-changing project instead of constantly reacting to every small incoming interruption. It is where you deliberately practice the one skill that will bring you better opportunities in the future. It is where you develop the detailed plan that will take your brilliant idea from a mere concept to a tangible reality. The key is to consistently direct your most potent energy toward actions that produce visible, meaningful progress. If you cannot point to a specific, valuable result after the hour is over, it likely was not the best use of your time. This daily improvement audiobook, 1 hour at a time, is your guide to making that distinction. The hour of resilience, pushing beyond your perceived limits. There comes a point in almost every meaningful endeavor, every task, every workout, every learning session, and every significant challenge where you feel the powerful, seductive urge to stop. It does not always arrive at the same time, but it always arrives. It is that critical moment where your energy dips, your motivation wanes, and your mind begins to expertly craft a list of perfectly logical reasons why it is okay to walk away. You tell yourself you have done enough for today. You tell yourself you will get back to it later with fresh eyes. You tell yourself it is simply not worth the escalating effort right now. That moment, that quitting point, is the real test. It is the precise junction where progress is either forged or forfeited. If you can commit to spending 1 hour a day, deliberately pushing past that exact moment instead of giving into it, you will discover reserves of strength, endurance, and personal growth that you never knew you possessed. The mind's primary evolutionary instinct is to protect you from discomfort. When you begin to feel mental fatigue, boredom, or frustration, its immediate response is to steer you towards something easier and more pleasant. It wants to conserve energy, but growth is not built in the moments when things are easy. It is forged in the crucible of the moments when things are hard, and you make the conscious choice to keep going anyway. The problem is that most people have, over years of habituation, trained themselves to quit the second that feeling of discomfort arises, and because they have solidified that habit of retreat, they never get to experience what lies on the other side of that discomfort. Pushing past the quitting point is not about mindlessly ignoring pain or forcing yourself into a state of exhaustion for no reason. It is about proving to yourself a fundamental truth. The feeling of wanting to stop is not the same as the need to stop. Your mind will signal to you that you have reached your absolute limit. But more often than not, that limit is just a psychological barrier you have constructed through past habits. When you intentionally push beyond it, you consistently discover that you had more capacity, more fuel in the tank all along. This is a cornerstone of the 1 hour daily discipline audiobook. 1 hour may not sound like a long time, but when you commit to staying in the fight after you feel like quitting, that hour transforms everything. In those 60 minutes, you are actively teaching yourself the skill of resilience. You are training your nervous system to keep showing up even when your emotions are screaming for you to leave. And that acquired mental toughness will inevitably carry over into every other part of your life, your work, your health, your relationships, and your most ambitious goals. This practice begins with the sharp awareness to recognize the moment you want to quit. You have to be mindful enough to notice its subtle arrival. It often starts not with a shout, but with a whisper, a wandering thought, a slight drop in your effort, a sudden inexplicable urge to check something unrelated. That is the moment to make a conscious decision. I'm staying. Instead of succumbing, do that drift. You plant yourself even more firmly in the work. You lock your focus onto the very next small action you can take, and you refuse to let the urge to stop win the battle for your attention. Once you decide to push past it, your mind will resist fiercely. The work might feel heavier, your thoughts slower, your body more restless. This is the precise point where most people walk away. But this is also the doorway to the next level of your potential. The hour of reinforcement, turning weakness into strength. Every single person has weaknesses, and for the most part they are not a mystery to us. We know where we fall short. We are intimately familiar with the habits, the skill gaps, the emotional tendencies, or the limiting attitudes that consistently keep us from moving forward. We feel their presence every time we miss an opportunity, make the same frustrating mistake again, or find ourselves falling behind where we know we could be. But instead of directly addressing these weaknesses, most people learn to work around them, hoping they will not matter in the long run. The hard truth is they always matter. A weakness left unfixed becomes a constant, invisible obstacle, and it will follow you into every new challenge and every new opportunity you try to take on. That is why dedicating one focused hour to systematically fixing one weakness in your life can be one of the most powerful and valuable uses of your time. This self-improvement 1 hour a day is an investment in your future self. The crucial first step is to be radically honest with yourself about what your weakness actually is. This is not an exercise in self-criticism or an opportunity to tear yourself down. It is an exercise in clarity. You cannot fix what you refuse to see. For one person, the weakness might be a chronic lack of discipline. For another, it could be poor communication skills, low self-confidence, a short temper, or an inability to stay organized. It might even be a specific gap in knowledge or a technical skill that your work or life demands, but you have been actively avoiding learning it. Whatever it is, you must name it clearly and without ambiguity. You have to know exactly what you are working on before you can begin the process of improvement. Once you have identified the weakness, the key is to break down the solution into concrete actions you can take within a single hour. If your weakness is a fear of public speaking, that hour could be spent practicing a presentation out loud, recording yourself to identify areas for improvement and making targeted adjustments. If your weakness is poor time management, that hour could be spent meticulously planning your upcoming day, reviewing where you have lost time in the past, and setting up new systems to prevent it from happening again. If your weakness is related to physical health, that hour could be invested in a focused training session, strategic meal preparation, or dedicated learning about nutrition. The point is to spend that hour directly confronting the very thing you have been allowing to hold you back. The reason this 1 hour focus habit works so powerfully is because weaknesses often feel overwhelming when we contemplate fixing them all at once. We imagine months or even years of arduous work and quickly decide it is too big a mountain to climb right now. But when you commit to just one focused hour, you shrink the problem into something you can start on immediately. You do not have to fix the entire weakness today. You just have to take one solid, meaningful step toward removing it from your life. Over time, those focused hours stack up, and what once felt like a permanent limitation gradually transforms into an area of surprising strength. When you work on a weakness with full focus, you are doing more than just building a new skill. You are fundamentally changing your relationship with it. Many people avoid their weaknesses because they feel a sense of shame or embarrassment about them. They pretend they do not exist, or they try to hide them from others. But when you face a weakness head-on, with courage and intention, that embarrassment begins to transform into ownership. You stop seeing it as a permanent character flaw and start seeing it as a temporary challenge that you have the power to overcome. That shift in mindset is just as valuable, if not more so, than the skill you are developing. The hour of deep work, achieving total mental immersion. When you sit down to work, your mind often does not stay with you for long. You may begin with a clear intention and a sharp focus, but within minutes, it begins to drift. It wanders to a conversation that happened earlier. It starts planning what you will do later in the evening, or it reflexively jumps toward whatever shiny distraction is nearby. This constant state of mental escape is the primary reason so many people can put in long hours at their desk without producing anything of significant value. The difference between a distracted hour and an hour of complete mental presence is not small, it is enormous. When you manage to work for 1 hour without letting your mind escape even once, the depth, quality, and sheer volume of what you can achieve can be far beyond what you previously thought possible. This is not about simply sitting in one place for an hour. It is about training the wild horse of your attention to stay exactly where you have decided it belongs. Most people drastically underestimate how slippery and elusive their own attention can be. They believe they are working, but their mind is only half present for most of the time. They are reading a report, but simultaneously thinking about their lunch order. They are writing a proposal, but already imagining what the rest of their day will look like. This split focus costs more than just time. It costs depth, it costs accuracy, and it costs quality. The audiobook, Deep Focus. 1 hour principle is about eliminating this cost. Working without mental escape means you treat that hour as a sacred commitment to be fully 100 present. The very moment you notice your mind beginning to drift, you bring it back immediately and without judgment. You do not follow the distracting thought. You do not give in to the just for a second curiosity of checking something else. You anchor your mind to the work in front of you as if nothing else in the world exists. This level of discipline is exceedingly rare in our modern world, precisely because it is so difficult. But it is also one of the fastest and most effective ways to dramatically improve the value of your work and the speed of your progress. The challenge is that your mind will resist this training. It has become accustomed to hopping between thoughts, following random impulses, and chasing the next hit of stimulation. Staying locked onto one thing for 60 consecutive minutes goes directly against the scattered patterns you have likely built over years. That is why this requires deliberate conscious practice. You have to catch yourself in the very act of drifting and choose over and over again to stay. In the beginning, you may have to do this dozens of times in a single hour. However, over time, the number of times you drift will decrease, and your ability to hold your attention will grow stronger and more stable. To work like this, preparation is absolutely essential. Your environment must be a fortress that supports your goal. Every potential escape route for your mind needs to be removed before you start. Put your phone in another room or turn it completely off. Close all unrelated tabs and applications. On your computer, clear your physical workspace of anything that might tempt you to shift your focus. The fewer options your mind has to wander toward, the easier it will be to stay immersed in the work. The hour should feel like a closed and sealed space with only one door, and that door leads directly into the task you have chosen. The hour of evidence, creating tangible, measurable progress. Most people move through their days doing things that keep them perpetually busy, but leave them with nothing tangible to show for their effort. They spend countless hours in motion, but they end the day without a real, visceral sense of progress. The problem is not that they are not working. It is that they are not building results they can actually feel. Real results are measurable, noticeable, and impactful. They fundamentally change the way you see yourself and the way your life appears from the outside. When you dedicate one focused hour daily to building results you can feel, you make a critical shift away from simply filling time to intentionally creating something that truly and undeniably moves you forward. Results you can feel are the ones that have weight and substance. You can see them in your body when you train with purpose, in your bank account when you close a deal, in your elevated skill level when you practice with intention, and in your soaring confidence when you complete a genuinely challenging task. They are not vague, abstract concepts like making progress. They are proof, and proof is what changes your relationship with your goals because it systematically replaces fragile hope with hard evidence. The first step to building tangible results is deciding with absolute precision what those results should be. This is the stage where many people get lost. They work toward a fuzzy, ill-defined goal without ever clarifying what progress will actually look like. As a result, they never know if they are getting closer or just spinning their wheels. Before you begin your focused hour, be crystal clear about the specific outcome you are aiming for. It could be a finished section of a written project, a set number of high-quality repetitions in a training session, a specific and measurable improvement in a skill or a concrete problem solved and documented. The clearer your target, the stronger and more directed your focus will be. This is how you make the 1 hour daily improvement audiobook a practical reality. Once you have that clear target, the key is to devote your full and undivided energy to it for the entire hour. This is not the time for passive, half-hearted effort. Passive effort produces little to nothing of value. If you want results you can feel, you have to work with enough intensity to make a real impact. That means pushing yourself, not just going through the motions. It means challenging your current limits and performing the work at a standard that ensures the result is clearly noticeable by the end of the session. The reason a single hour can be so disproportionately powerful is because of the multiplier effect of focus. Most people spread their attention so thinly across too many things that each individual task receives only a fraction of their potential energy. By narrowing that focus down to a single high-stakes goal for 1 hour, you are concentrating your effort where it matters most. This concentrated effort creates powerful momentum, and when momentum builds, results begin to follow much faster than you would expect. It is absolutely essential to track what you are doing during these hours. If you cannot measure it, you cannot improve it. Keep a simple, consistent record of what you achieved in each session, so you can look back and visually see the progress over time. But this practice not only keeps you accountable to your goals, but also serves as a powerful source of motivation. There is nothing more encouraging than looking back at your own records and seeing the undeniable proof that your daily efforts are stacking up into something meaningful and significant. The hour of momentum, building a bridge to your future self. There is a profound difference between doing something today and doing something today that will still matter tomorrow. A great deal of what fills the average day disappears by the E. Next morning, the countless emails you answered, the quick errands you ran, the easy, low-impact tasks you checked off a list, they are gone from your memory, and they leave no real lasting impact on your trajectory. But when you spend 1 hour making progress that you cannot possibly ignore tomorrow, you are creating something that forces you to keep going. It is the kind of progress that sits in front of you the next day and demands that you build upon it. That is the work that truly changes things. That is how a life transformation in 1 hour audio becomes a lived reality. This specific kind of progress is different from just being busy. It is intentional, it is visible, and it has weight. You can point to it and say, "This matters." It might be the completed chapter you wrote for your book, the critical next step you executed in a business plan, the physical training session that moves you tangibly closer to your goal, or the piece of a project that fundamentally changes how the whole thing works. Whatever it is not something you can just brush aside or forget about. It is there tomorrow, and it will still be there next week, waiting for the next layer of effort. The reason most people do not consistently make this kind of progress is because it is demanding. It requires deep, uninterrupted focus and the willingness to work on something that is significant enough to challenge you. It's far easier and more comfortable to fill the day with an assortment of smaller, less important tasks that make you feel productive in the moment, but leave no lasting footprint. That is why this 1 hour must be chosen and protected with strategic care. You are not just working for today, you are building something that will carry its own momentum forward into tomorrow. To make this practice work, you must first identify what progress you can't ignore means for you in your current context. It could be the completion of a key milestone that officially moves your project from the planning stage to the execution stage. It could be finally solving a persistent problem that has been slowing you down for weeks. It could be making tangible, demonstrable progress on a difficult skill you have committed to mastering. The key criterion is that it must be something that will remain relevant and demand your attention tomorrow. It cannot be allowed to fade into the background like 100 minor tasks inevitably do. Once you know what that task is, you must approach the hour with absolute seriousness. This is not casual work time. This is an hour you must protect from every conceivable distraction. No scrolling through social media, no answering non-emergency calls, no bouncing between different browser tabs. You are here for one singular reason, and until that hour is over, nothing else in your world exists. This level of intense attention is what transforms 60 minutes from just another block of time into a genuine turning point. When you are working with this level of purpose, you will notice that your pace and your decision-making change. You stop wasting time on activities that do not directly move the work forward. You stop over minor decisions. You focus exclusively on the actions that will get you to a place where, by the end of the hour, you can see and feel that something significant and irreversible has changed. That is the kind of momentum that does not vanish overnight. It is a force that pulls you into the next day with a sense of clarity and renewed energy. Outro. You have now been given the blueprint. The transformative power of a single focused hour is no longer a secret. It is a choice. A choice to reclaim a small fraction of your day and dedicate it to the work that matters. A choice to build a life not on the foundation of endless hustle, but on the bedrock of consistent, deliberate, and intelligent effort. The principles in this audiobook are not just theories. They are calls to action. The hour of confrontation, of presence, of completion, of intensity. Each one is a tool waiting for you to pick it up. Your future will not be shaped by what you intend to do tomorrow, but by the focused hour you commit to today. Progress is not an accident. It is the result of daily discipline. Remember, the goal is not to be perfect. The goal is to be consistent. Unfocused hour, repeated day after day, will compound into a force of change so powerful it will reshape your skills, your confidence, and your destiny. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, and the transformation of a lifetime can begin with a single hour. This has been Peter A. Saul. Thank you for listening. Now go and claim your hour.